You are working way more than a caveman ever did. That's not an insult. It's math. Hunter-gatherers put in about 15 hours a week, then spent the rest of the time napping, eating, and sitting with friends. You have a job that eats your whole life. Somewhere along the way, we got scammed. Here's exactly how it happened, step by step. Your alarm goes off. It is still dark outside, coffee, traffic, a parking spot you already hate, 8 hours at a desk under a buzzing light. Now rewind 50,000 years. Your ancestor wakes with the sun. No alarm anywhere. He eats, he takes a spear, and he heads out with 3 friends. By lunch, his work for the whole day is finished. So how did the caveman end up with more free time than you? Let us start with what they actually did all day. In the 1960s, anthropologist Richard Lee went to the Kalahari Desert. He lived with the Kungsan, one of the last foraging groups on Earth. He timed everything. Every hour they spent getting food. The number came back at roughly 15 hours a week. 15. For context, you probably do that much by Tuesday afternoon. Then, another anthropologist, Marshall Solins, gathered data from everywhere. Australia, Africa, the same picture kept turning up. 3 to 5 hours of food work, per adult per day. And it was not constant work. It came in short bursts. Solins gave it a name that made economists furious. The original affluent society. Affluent not because they owned a lot. Affluent because they needed almost nothing. And this pattern was not a fluke. It showed up group after group. The Hadza in Tanzania, the Martu in Australia. Different continents, different deserts, the same short work week. Yuval Noah Harari put it bluntly in his book Sapiens. A forager hunted maybe 1 day out of every 3. The other 2 days, he was simply free. They were finished with work by lunch. You're not even at your lunch break yet. Now you might be thinking, sure, but those are modern people. How do we know ancient humans lived the same way? Fair question. The answer is buried in their bones. Compare a forager's skeleton to an early farmer's skeleton. The forager is taller, straighter, with far better teeth. The farmer is shorter, with worn joints and cavities. The bones tell a story the textbooks got completely backwards. Less repetitive labor for the forager, not more. So if they only worked 15 hours, what filled the rest? This is the part that breaks people's brains. They rested, on purpose, every single day. They napped through the afternoon, more than any society since. You call that lazy. They called it Tuesday. They sat around the fire and traded stories for hours. Real evidence backs all of this up, and it is beautiful. In 1994, 3 explorers found Chauvet cave in southern France. Inside were paintings made roughly 30,000 years ago. Horses, lions, rhinos, drawn with real shading and perspective. These were not crude scratches. This was genuine skill. Someone spent hours deep in the dark, by firelight, making art. Not for food, not for survival, for beauty alone. Then there is Blombos Cave on the coast of South Africa. Archaeologists found shell beads about 100,000 years old. Tiny holes, drilled by hand, meant to be worn as jewelry. The nearest shells sat kilometers away from that cave. Someone made that whole trip just to look good. In Germany, they found a flute, carved from a vulture bone, 40,000 years old, with 5 finger holes perfectly spaced. Whoever carved it clearly understood music. Not for hunting, for a song around the evening fire. Art, jewelry, music, from people who supposedly struggled to survive. That is not bare survival. That is a full life, with time to spare. So let us actually reconstruct one of their ordinary days. You wake at dawn. Last night's fire is still faintly warm. The air smells of ash and wet grass. Nobody is rushing. Breakfast is leftover meat and berries, and it is social. There is no clock on any wall. There is no boss. Maybe a small group leaves to hunt, but here is the key. They do not go every day. If food is stored, they stay. A day at camp means fixing a spear, weaving a basket. This is not work in your sense. There is no supervisor watching. They do it because being skilled earns real respect. When they do hunt, it is not the frantic chase from the movies. Humans are persistence hunters. We track at a slow, steady jog. The animal overheats. We do not. We sweat and keep going. Sand hunters in the Kalahari still do this today with a single antelope. They pick one animal and follow it under the midday sun for hours. 8 kilometers, sometimes more. No sprint, just patience. Hours later, it collapses from the heat, and dinner is served. By early afternoon, the productive part of the day is over, and here is what modern people cannot wrap their heads around. What comes next is nothing. and also everything. They sit in the shade and talk for hours. They play games with the children. They groom each other, picking through hair, and it builds bonds. They make jewelry from shells, beads, and animal teeth. James Sussman spent 25 years living with the Khoisan. Adults spend around 6 hours a day simply being together, not working, not sleeping, talking, laughing, telling jokes. Because in a world with no money and no police, your survival depended entirely on your relationships. If people disliked you, they did not share food when you were hungry, so they poured enormous time into each other. Sound familiar? It should. That is your dream weekend. Naps, friends, food, no boss. For them, that was just life. Then the sun goes down, and something remarkable happens. In 2014, an anthropologist studied hundreds of hours of their talk. During the day, talk was practical. Tracks, plants, who shared unfairly. But at night, around the fire, 81% of talk turned to stories. Myths, ancestors, jokes, adventures from faraway places. She argued, this is exactly where human culture was born. Gods and spirits, the past, the future, the things you only think about when your stomach is full and you are safe. And they did not even sleep the way you sleep. Records from medieval Europe and modern sleep studies agree on this. Before electric light, humans slept in 2 separate phases. First sleep, then a calm, wakeful hour in the dark, then second sleep. You wake at 2 a.m. and call it insomnia. They woke at 2 a.m. and called it reflection. So here's the full day. Roughly 15 hours a week on food, 6 hours a day with people, 8 hours of sleep in 2 phases, and a huge slice left over for doing nothing at all, existing without justifying your existence through productivity. Your ancestors' average Tuesday was your dream vacation. So what went wrong? Who actually took this from us? About 10,000 years ago, humans tried one new thing. They planted seeds. They started farming. And this is the villain of the entire story. Not a predator, not a war, a quiet field of wheat. Harari called agriculture history's biggest fraud. Here's the trap. Farming feeds more people. More people means you need even more food. More food means more farming. And the loop tightens around you. Within a few generations, there was no way back at all. Too many mouths to feed by hunting. You were locked in for good. And farming demanded far more labor than foraging ever did. Plowing, planting, weeding, harvesting, guarding it all. From sunrise to sunset, every single day of the year. Farming also created something the foragers never had. Surplus. Surplus you can store, surplus you can own, surplus you can hoard. And once some people owned more, the rest had to work for them. That is where bosses were born, right there in the dirt. A forager owned only what he could carry, with nothing to guard. A farmer owned land, grain, and walls, and now he had to defend it. Property arrived, and with it came theft, debt, and raiders. The foragers had none of that. There was simply nothing to steal. And the skeletons? They only got worse from here. Early farmers were shorter, arthritis, herniated spines from the fields, cavities from a grain-heavy diet, and they died younger. Picture it clearly. A free hunter on one side, a bent farmer chained to one patch of dirt on the other. We did not invent farming and get weekends off. We invented farming and lost the 200,000-year vacation. Every job you have ever hated started in that first wheat field. That Sunday night dread before work, no hunter-gatherer ever felt it. The feeling did not exist. You inherited that dread from the very first farmer. Then populations exploded, and brand new roles appeared. Specialists, toolmakers, potters, weavers, then soldiers, priests, and administrators. And eventually, the idea that your time belongs to someone else. Employment, wages, a clock. You have to punch. By the time we built cities, the old free life was already gone, replaced by schedules, deadlines, and obligations. Now, fast forward to 1930, an economist makes a bold promise. John Maynard Keynes tried to predict the future of work. Machines would get so good, he said, that by 2030, people would only need to work 15 hours a week. The rest of the time? Art, music, philosophy. Here's the punchline. The technology actually arrived. The 15-hour week never did. The caveman got the exact week Keynes promised you. You got the technology and somehow still work 40. So where exactly did all that saved time go? Each new machine did not cut your hours. It raised the target. The washing machine saved hours, and we just demanded cleaner clothes. Faster tools meant more output, never fewer hours for you. We even invented a phrase to cope with it, work-life balance. Sit with that term. You only name a balance that is already broken. Now, I have to be completely honest with you here. Solons got criticized. A scholar named Kaplan pushed back in 2000. Count all the chores, he argued, and it climbs closer to 40 hours. Fair enough. So let us take the strictest possible number. Even then, it is still less than your 40 to 80. And both sides of the debate agree on one thing. They did not work more than you. Not even close. And that is with them living out in the Kalahari, one of the harshest deserts anywhere on Earth. You have a heated office and a coffee machine in the corner, and you still outwork a man in a sandstorm. Let that sit. So what does all this mean for you, sitting here right now? When you fantasize about quitting and living simply, that is not laziness. It is not a midlife crisis. That is 200,000 years of instinct telling you something is off. Your body still runs on the old schedule underneath it all. It wants the afternoon nap. It wants the fire and the friends. The tiredness you feel is not weakness. It is an ancient signal that the deal we made was a bad one. We traded freedom for food security. We traded leisure for population growth. We traded time itself for productivity. Nobody ever signed off on that trade. It just happened, field by field. Your ancestor woke up whenever his body was ready. He asked himself one simple question. What do I want to do today? You wake up, and the answer is already decided for you. He was already free, already enough. Nothing to prove to anyone. He was already living the life you are working to retire into. He made art because he simply had the time. You make art only if you can find time left after your job. We are the same species. We just live so differently that we might as well be strangers to the people we came from. For 99% of our history, freedom was simply the default setting. We are the strange ones here, not them. The caveman is not the primitive one in this story. He got the 15-hour week. He got the naps. He got the fire. You got the technology, the mattress, and a job that owns your soul. So who is actually winning here? So be honest with yourself. If you could trade your job for a 15-hour week, hunting and gathering with your closest friends, would you? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one.